welcome to a Sideways Life podcast. My name is Al Elliott.
And I'm Leanne Elliott.
Hello there. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, if this is your first time of listening, then just explain a little bit.
Welcome.
Oh, welcome, of course. Welcome. And just Leanne.
Manners.
Sorry, getting told off here. And do you want to tell us what this Sideways Life is all about, Leanne?
It's for people who just want to live life a little bit sideways, a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think that we're going to tell you in a minute why we're called, well, you've probably heard of us as Thravellers before, and we'll tell you in a minute why we are now Sideways Life. But predominantly it sort of came from the idea that most people will live life sort of in one sort of forwards direction, which is nothing wrong with, and we're not in any way knocking. It's just that for some people, they want to live it a little bit sideways. So the forward might be get married, have children, retire, etc., etc. And other people just want to do things a little bit differently. So that's what this is about. Does that sound fair enough?
Yes.
So the big question, Leanne, is what the flipping heck happened to Thravellers?
A global pandemic happened to Thravellers. I think like everyone's, we've all had such a crappy couple of years, haven't we? What was it? No, year now, isn't it? It's, for us, we went from travelling at least once a month to a new place to being locked down in one place. If you'd listened to previous episodes, you'll know that was Lithuania and then Maribor. And whilst we tried to keep up with the podcast and talking about the places we've been and kind of with the view of, places to add to your list when the world opens up, it became clear really, that the world is going to take a while to heal. I understand the negative responses that kind of seen on social media about people posting pictures of where they're traveling, and we completely agree. Responsible travel is so important. It just felt that the conversation that Thravellers started had perhaps finished.
Yeah, and I think that there was also an element of keeping up with our posting. Like if you follow us on Instagram, you'll know that we try to regularly, at least once or twice a week, if not once a day, post what we're doing, which of course is exciting when we're in the middle of India or we're about to get on a flight to go to Indonesia or whatever, or we're planning a trip to Belarus, for example, which I'm glad we didn't go because
that would have been tasty.
Yeah, tasty as you like. Anyway, so in terms of COVID, we meant.
Yes.
So we just felt that content-wise, what are we going to do? Because we were locked down just like you were. We just happened to be in Lithuania and then happened to be in Slovenia. Those were our two major places we spent time in lockdown. And so we can't very well post a picture saying, oh, yeah, this is a cheese sandwich we made today, which is the same cheese sandwich we made yesterday and the day before.
Day 179 in Maribor, a slightly different view of the same bridge we've been showing you for the past 3 months.
Well, exactly. And then there's only so many sort of, what do you call it in Instagram where you do throwbacks? There's only so many throwbacks you can do without just looking like a bit of an idiot. So Leanne and I sat down and we said, right, okay, well, if we were not going to be around travel anymore, it's still going to have an element of travel, but not be around travel. We thought what's going to be sort of an exciting subject that also allows us to talk about stuff, even if we are staying in one place for 12 months, which in fact we are planning to do. We're planning to stay in Croatia for 12 months. Mm-hmm. And Leanne came up with a couple of great ideas, and I think that they were essentially around people who live life a little bit differently.
Yeah, we were chatting. We were sat on our in our house in Maribor for the 100th day in a row. We weren't allowed to leave, and we were just chatting about how our sideways life started. Mm-hmm. And I said to Al, I remember when I graduated from my undergraduate degree back when. Maybe waking up on my third day of work and just thinking, man, is this it? Mm-hmm. Is this me? Do I go to work? Do I then get married, have kids, have a career, buy a house? If I'm lucky, live a long and healthy, happy life to then retire and maybe travel a bit along the way. And it was just, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it just felt uncomfortable. It felt like things I didn't really want, and yet I could see people around me. I have older sisters who have this life and love their life. They've got beautiful families, great jobs, but I was just like, I don't want to. I don't want to. Don't make me.
And luckily, I mean, we we are lucky in that our jobs, well, we're not necessarily lucky, but I've got a business which means that I can work remotely pretty much anywhere. And Leanne manufactured a way in which you can. In fact, that's quite a cool story about how you went remote in your work, which we'll talk about perhaps a little bit later on. Yeah. But the other aspect was we were looking at our podcasts. Now we've done about 20 through 22 episodes, something like that, and by far, like 3 or 4 times the number of downloads, the most popular ones are the stories of people who have started a business somewhere or have become an expat. Mm-hmm. The episodes about our travel are the least popular.
Apart from San Sebastian, one just, I don't know why. People must do a lot of research into San Sebastian.
Maybe there's not much on San Sebastian.
Maybe, but if you're planning a trip,
it's a good episode.
Not now. Travel responsibly.
Yeah. But it is a good one to listen to. But most of them were around stories of people who've done something a little bit
cool.
Yeah, like a couple of Canadians who set up a tiki bar on the island of Gili Trawangan, near Lombok in Indonesia. Then we spoke to a guy who started a hotel in Goa.
Yeah, an upcycling based hotel out of shipping containers.
Yeah. And so we thought, and all these stories were just fascinating to us. And so we thought, hang on, why do we have to make the podcast all about our travels? Why don't we just start talking to people who've got cool stories? Now, you'll probably see there is a central theme that'll go through this, which is probably around travel or remote work, because those are that's what interests us. And I hope will interest you. Otherwise, you're a bit of a weirdo listening to this podcast if that doesn't tickle your pickle. But so that's where we sort of came from with this. Have you got anything else to add to that? Anything I've missed out?
I think exactly that. And, the 3 pillars that we enjoy talking about, you guys seem to enjoy listening to, and we're inspired by, is anything around work, remote work or business, entrepreneurship, travel, seeing the world, whether that be as a tourist or an expat, and community. I think that's one thing that we've struggled with over the years. But then at the same time, we've struggled in that it's hard to have friends in every place you go, yet we have now friends all over the world, which is amazing. So I think just community, building a community and experience a community, whether you are an expat or whether you are traveling full-time.
Yeah. So that's basically the idea. We've got a companion website, which is called asidewayslife.com, surprisingly enough. And we're building that out right now. And I think that the key things on that website is almost everything we're going to ask, right, if we're going to post something, an article or a story or something we found or a video, then is it about A, working remotely? Or is it about B, some kind of travel or something a little bit different from home? I'm using inverted commas in the middle, your fingers, the inverted commas, mouse ears, whatever you call them. And then the third thing is community because that's the most important thing. You can, we've done it. We've basically got in our car, driven to Spain. We did that in May 2013. We got in our car, loaded everything up, drove to Spain, and then got there and we're like...
In a C3, no less.
In a Citroen C3, which is about half the size of a smart car. We had a Rottweiler as well. So he had to sit on top of 16 packing cases. Took us 4 days to drive down with everything in there. But we turned up and we were like, great, we've got this new life. This is cool. And then we're like, shit, we don't know anyone. How do we get to know anyone? And we don't really speak Spanish. So how's this going to work? So in the community we found around there, there were some potentially very strange people. There were some very entertaining people. And there were some absolute beautiful people who welcomed us with open arms. And that was what made the experience, was that community. Yeah. And as great as it is turning up in Hanoi at 8 o'clock at night on the equivalent of the Vietnamese New Year.
I'm not sure it was that great, truth be told, Al.
All right, I'm trying to put a positive spin on it. Hanoi wasn't our favourite place, but we turned up and the place was just heaving, and we were there for about 6 nights or something. And night 2, we sat down next to this Dutch couple. We started drinking gin with them, and it just turned what could potentially have been a bit of a God, when do we leave sort of position to this is really cool,
Yes.
So I think that's really, really important, that the community is really important. But we also want to hear back from you. So if you are listening to this, then jump on Instagram, search for A Sideways Life. It used to be Thravellers, so A Sideways Life. Search for that and send us a message and tell us what you'd like to hear. Because we're not quite at the listenership where we've got millions of listeners, and we really want to hear from you, and we're perfectly happy to sort of chat about things you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I feel like I went a bit off topic there.
I don't think so.
No.
I think this podcast often goes off topic, so it's probably bang on topic.
Good point. It's rarely linear, which is ironic. No, it's not ironic. It's exactly on brand. Our conversations are rarely linear. They're always a little bit sideways.
Oh, there you go. Da-dum.
You can see why people think I'm a marketing genius. Okay, so a couple of other little bits to tell you. I think we've got a few episodes in the can, as they say in the industry.
We do. We've got some really good ones. Really good ones. The first thing we want to do as well, though, is revisit the people and interviews that inspired us to rebrand, to pivot into a sideways life. So we mentioned the guys on Gili Island, our interview with the business owner in Goa, and also the conversation we had with a friend of ours who is a CFO in Gibraltar. So we're going to revisit those episodes. We're going to play you some clips, chat about what we thought was interesting, what inspired us, what we took from it, just to kind of get you into the groove of how this podcast is going to go.
Yeah. So even if you've listened to them before, it's probably still worth a listen, because we're going to start picking out little parts of the conversation, and we're probably going to put them in the context of a sideways life. So, not necessarily about travel, but more about how you could potentially learn. That sounds a bit condescending. I don't mean like you can learn from them, but
be inspired.
Exactly. That's a much better way of saying it.
Because they're all so different, such different stories. And I think that's the point, is it? We're not saying you should travel full time. You should open a bar in Indonesia. You should know. I couldn't imagine anything harder in terms of work than opening any kind of hospitality business, let alone going through the past year and a half. So this isn't by any means to say this is what we think is the right way. It's just really showcasing there are so many different lives that are out there, so many different ways to live life, to work, to travel. I know for me, I didn't have any kind of exposure to those types of lives when I was younger, when I was starting to make decisions. I think the most you get is maybe be an expat if you work for a big company that has overseas
Divisions.
Thank you. But that was it. But there are so many possibilities. And I think as well that we're very fortunate to meet some incredible people. And I think, one, it's a privilege to help tell their story. And two, how cool would it be if we inspired somebody to change things up in their life a little bit?
Absolutely. So hopefully what you can hear from us coming up is going to be interviews with people who are potentially expats or have started new life somewhere else. There'll probably be interviews with people who are still in their home, in their home country, but have done something pretty cool with their life. And
definitely, yeah. And I think as well, we'll talk about a lot more about business, about business owners and people who have created a brand or have become a contractor or self-employed, because I think that's a big aspect of it as well, isn't it?
Which leads nicely into, can you tell the story of how you became remote worker?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So we made the decision to move to Spain probably the latter half 2012. And then I had a job. I was working in a management level role for a services contract, a welfare to work, and went to my manager, my beautiful, beautiful manager, about 5-6 weeks before we planned to leave, and told him that I was very sorry, but I was going to have to hand in my notice. We were moving abroad, blah, 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 blah. He was very lovely, gave me a big hug, wished me luck, and then called me about 9 o'clock the next morning and said, just been thinking, how much of your job do you think you could do remotely? And it was as simple as that. Yes, he was very progressive. This was in 2013. Now it's not that much of a shock. I think everyone's worked remotely at some point over the past year. And I think that was the breakthrough really, is when I actually sat down and looked at my job and how much I could do of it remotely. It was about 75%. So that's what I did. And I flew back once a month to do the 25% that I couldn't do when I was away in Spain. And I did that for 2 years.
And I think there's so much that we can all take away from that. If you do have a job, then maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, you might have thought, how the hell am I going to be able to live in rural Wales, for example, if you live in London and do your job? But the last year to 15 months of everyone working from home and working remotely has proven that exactly that can be done, that for the majority of people, excuse me, for the majority of people, they can just, they can move out of London. They can live, if I'm taking my example of London because that's where I'm thinking is the epicenter of the world, but they can move out of London and live in Scotland and still do their job. And so we are definitely sort of showcasing people who do that and also encouraging people who can do that. I mean, if you're looking to, there is a great story in a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I know I blanked on his name then, by Tim Ferriss, about how he went remote. How he started working remotely. This is way back in 2006 or something. It was a very convoluted and complex route that he did it, basically working from home without telling them and then saying, I did work from home and I got more done and blah, 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 blah. But the opportunities now for a lot of people are just to be able to say, hey, boss, I want to work from home or I want to move to Italy. And they just disappear and go, right, well, I can still work there. Yeah,
I think people are a lot more open to it now, both in terms of companies and individuals. And I think the only thing that I would say, having worked from home, in inverted commas, for the past 7 years, is that people are not currently working from home. They are working from home during a global pandemic. And those is such a different thing. It's such a different experience. I've struggled to keep myself motivated and engaged after 7 years of practice. So I think if anyone is perhaps a little bit, would like that opportunity to work from home or work remotely, but feels a bit uncomfortable with their experiences over the last 12 months, I'd just say try and separate the two because it's a very different experience. We've all been impacted whether we're used to working from home or not, I think.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so that was supposed to be a little mini episode talking about minisode. Is that a word?
It is now.
There we go. It's but a little mini episode about why we've changed the name. I suppose we could have probably done that in about 90 seconds by saying we changed the name because we now want to talk less about travel and more about
We could, but you don't listen to us for concise stories.
No, you want to hear the ramblings and the times when I forget words and Leanna's to get me back on track. So, all right, so should we call it a day?
Yes, I think we should.
Okay, so we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
That went all right, Leanne, didn't it?
Yes, marvellous.
Are you pleased with that?
How long was that? We could have done that in like 5 minutes.